Have you ever felt the sting of betrayal in the most unexpected places? Trusted friends, loved ones, or even colleagues whom you confided in, suddenly becoming architects of your pain. Their actions, cloaked in secrecy, left scars so deep they bled into the very fabric of your soul. You held back your tears, silenced your cries, and carried on as though the weight of their deceit hadn't crushed you. Yet the burden lingers, doesn't it? Silent, heavy, unseen by others but ever present within you. The world is full of paradoxes. How often do we witness the schemers flourish while the righteous falter? Those who conspire in shadows seem to thrive, while their victims endure an endless night of anguish. You've likely asked yourself, why is this allowed to happen? Where is justice? Where is God? It's a question that has echoed through the hearts of the broken since time immemorial. But what if the answer lies not in what we see, but in what we fail to understand? What if God's apparent silence is not indifference but preparation? You see, his justice is neither hasty nor impulsive. It is deliberate, precise, and transformative. The hands that molded the universe do not falter under pressure. They work in rhythms far beyond our comprehension, crafting outcomes that serve a purpose greater than we could ever imagine. Consider a seed buried deep in the soil. To the outside world it appears to be lost, crushed, and forgotten. The earth swallows it whole, and darkness envelops it entirely. But beneath the surface a miracle unfolds. The seed begins its transformation quietly and unseen. Its burial was not its end, it was its beginning. In much the same way, the betrayal you've endured, the pain you've carried, and the tears you've shed are not signs of defeat. They are the fertile soil where God is preparing something extraordinary. Think for a moment about the wounds inflicted on you in secret, the lies whispered behind your back, the plans made to tarnish your name, the deliberate acts designed to break you. Every act of treachery against you has been noted by God. Nothing escapes his sight, not their schemes, not their malice, not their hidden motives. Yet he waits, and his waiting is not without purpose. The truth is, exposure is not just about revealing wrongdoing. It is about timing, God's perfect timing. Imagine for a moment if truth were unveiled prematurely. Would you be ready to face it? Would you have the strength to rise above it? God's timing is not about satisfying your desire for immediate justice. It is about preparing you for restoration and victory. When he moves, the truth will come forth like the rising sun, undeniable and blinding in its clarity. And when it does, it will not just expose their actions, it will exalt your perseverance. Have you ever asked yourself why darkness feels so overwhelming? Why betrayal, when cloaked in secrecy, wounds us so deeply? It's because the silence of it makes us question everything: our worth, our strength, our very existence. But what if that silence is not a void but a space where God is at work, crafting something far beyond your understanding? The same God who hung the stars in the heavens is now preparing to illuminate the shadows in your life. The day will come when their deeds, hidden in darkness, will be brought to light. But here's the beauty: it will not be for your humiliation, but for your vindication. Their lies will be silenced, their schemes unraveled, and their intentions laid bare, not to destroy you but to exalt you. The very platform they used to conspire against you will become the stage for your restoration. Now pause for a moment. Reflect on this truth: God's justice is not arbitrary, it is redemptive. Every wound you've endured, every tear you've shed, every silent cry you've offered up in prayer, they are not forgotten. They are seeds planted in the soil of your faith, waiting for the rain of God's timing to bring forth a harvest of truth and triumph. Ask yourself, can you trust him in the waiting? Can you hold fast to the promise that what was done in secret will be revealed in the light? The silence of this moment is not the absence of his hand, it is the setting of his stage. And when he moves, the world will not only see their shame, but your glory. So, I leave you with this question. Are you ready to trust that the very hands that allowed the darkness to surround you are the same hands preparing to pull you into the light? Are you ready to believe that God's justice is not only inevitable but perfect? Hold on, for the day is coming when the whispers of betrayal will be drowned out by the roar of truth. God sees what others don't. It's easy to feel invisible when you've been wronged in secret. The sting of betrayal often carries a sense of isolation, as though no one could possibly understand the depths of your pain. But what if I told you that you are not invisible? What if I told you that every tear you've cried in silence, every heartbreak you've endured, every whisper of deceit that was uttered behind your back, God saw it all? The human heart longs for validation. We yearn for someone to acknowledge the wrongs done to us, to stand in our defense, and to speak truth where lies have taken root. But when the betrayal is hidden, when the hurt is inflicted in the dark, it can feel as though justice is out of reach. You wonder, does anyone even know what I've been through? Does anyone care? Let me assure you, the answer is yes. God sees, and He cares more deeply than you could ever imagine. The Scriptures remind us repeatedly that nothing is hidden from God's sight. In the book of Proverbs we read, "The eyes of the Lord are everywhere, keeping watch on the wicked and the good." Proverbs 15:3. This is not just a poetic verse, it is a promise. It means that every act committed in secret, whether good or evil, has been seen by the one who never slumbers nor sleeps. Your pain, though hidden from the world, is fully visible to the Creator of the universe. Have you ever considered why God allows us to walk through seasons of unseen suffering? It's not because He's distant or detached. It's because He is drawing us closer to Him. When others fail to see us, we are invited to lean into the one who sees everything. In those moments of betrayal, God is not just an observer. He is your witness, your comforter, and your defender. His presence is closer than your breath, and His understanding is deeper than your pain. Think about the story of Hagar, a woman cast aside and mistreated in the shadows of others' decisions. Alone in the wilderness, abandoned and broken, she could have easily believed that her suffering was unnoticed. But in her darkest moment, God appeared to her. She gave Him a name, El Roi, the God who sees me, Genesis 16:13. That name is as true for you today as it was for her then. God doesn't just see the actions of those who hurt you under. He sees your struggle, your resilience, your faith, and He is moved by it. The beauty of God's vision is that it penetrates deeper than any human perception. People see only what is on the surface, but God sees the heart. He sees the motivations behind every action, the intentions behind every word. Those who have wronged you may believe their secrets are safe, their deeds hidden. But nothing escapes the gaze of the Almighty. As Psalm 139 declares, "Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there." Psalm 139:7-8. Even in the darkest corners of deceit, God's light exposes the truth. Imagine the reassurance this brings. You don't have to fight to prove your innocence or uncover the lies on your own. God is already at work, even when you cannot see it. His justice is perfect, and His timing is precise. The same God who watched over Joseph as his brothers conspired against him is watching over you. They threw Joseph into a pit, believing they had silenced him. But God's plan for Joseph could not be thwarted. The secret schemes of others only served to position him for greatness. Let this truth sink in. God's vision is your assurance. While others may plot in the shadows, God's light is ever present. He sees the tears you cry behind closed doors, the prayers you whisper in desperation, the faith you hold on to when everything seems to be falling apart. And He is not indifferent. In fact, it is in those very moments of unseen pain that He is preparing a revelation far greater than you can imagine. God sees what others don't, and that includes the strength you've shown in the face of adversity. He sees your integrity, your perseverance, and your faithfulness, even when no one else acknowledges it. He is not just aware of your pain, He is actively working to transform it into a testimony. What others meant for harm, God will use for good. The power of divine timing. Timing is everything. When we face betrayal, our first instinct is often to demand immediate justice. We want the wrongs to be exposed, the lies to be undone, and the pain to be validated right here, right now. Yet God operates on a different schedule, one that may seem slow to us but is, in reality, perfect. The power of divine timing lies not just in bringing justice, but in ensuring that the justice is redemptive, complete, and transformative. Think about it. If every wrong were corrected the moment it occurred, would we truly grow? Would we develop patience, endurance, or faith? God's timing is not about delay, it's about preparation. He is not merely waiting for the right moment to expose those who hurt you. He is preparing you for the moment when exposure comes. There is a process happening behind the scenes, one that requires trust and surrender. Consider the story of Joseph once more. His brothers sold him into slavery, betrayed him, and thought they had rid themselves of him forever. For years, Joseph endured suffering in silence, first as a slave, then as a prisoner. To the outside world, it may have appeared as though God had abandoned him. But in reality, God was aligning events in a way that would not only expose his brother's wrongdoing, but elevate Joseph to a position of unimaginable influence. When the timing was right, Joseph was not just vindicated, he was exalted. His journey is a testament to the fact that God's timing is never late, it is always precise. The waiting period can feel excruciating. You may find yourself asking, why doesn't God act now? Why doesn't he intervene and stop this pain? The answer lies in his wisdom. God knows that exposure without preparation can lead to chaos, both for you and those around you. When God acts, it is not to satisfy fleeting emotions of vengeance, but to accomplish his greater plan. His timing ensures that the truth not only sets you free, but also aligns with his purpose for your life. Reflect on the seasons of your own life. Can you recall moments when you were desperate for resolution, only to later realize that the delay worked in your favor? Perhaps you weren't ready for the truth to come out. Perhaps the delay allowed you to grow, to heal, or to develop a deeper reliance on God. Divine timing is not about prolonging your pain, it's about ensuring that when justice arrives, it is undeniable and complete. Psalm 37:7 reminds us to be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. This verse is a call to trust, even when the world seems unfair. The people who hurt you may appear to be thriving right now, but appearances can be deceiving. God is not idle. He is at work even when you cannot see it. His justice is like the dawn, it may take time to rise, but when it does, it lights up everything in its path. Think of it this way, a masterpiece takes time to create. The brushstrokes, the details, the layers, each requires patience and care. God is the ultimate artist, and your life is his masterpiece. The betrayal you endured is just one stroke on the canvas. He is using it to create a picture far more beautiful than you can imagine. If he were to rush the process, the masterpiece would be incomplete. But because he takes his time, the end result will be breathtaking. Divine timing also humbles us. It reminds us that we are not in control and that our wisdom is limited. It teaches us to lean not on our own understanding but on God's. Waiting is not passive, it is active trust. It is choosing to believe that God's plans are better than our own, even when we can't see the full picture. It is resisting the urge to take matters into our own hands and instead allowing God to work in his way and his time. When you trust in divine timing, you free yourself from the weight of resentment. You stop obsessing over when justice will come and start focusing on what God is doing in your life during the wait. Perhaps he is strengthening your faith, deepening your character, or preparing you for a greater calling. Whatever the case, know this: the wait is never wasted. What is hidden will be revealed. There's a strange power in secrets. They can linger in the dark, whispering lies into the air, weaving a narrative that only benefits those who wish to harm you. But here's a truth that no amount of secrecy can silence. God has promised that nothing is hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Luke 8:17. No matter how carefully they hide their schemes, the day will come when every shadow will be pierced by light, and the truth will rise with a clarity no one can deny. You think about the layers of secrecy used by those who conspire against you. They work under the cover of darkness, believing that silence is their ally and that no one will ever uncover their deeds. To them, secrecy is a fortress, a shield against accountability. But what they fail to realize is that their secrets are like seeds planted in a field. Over time, seeds sprout, and in the same way their hidden actions will eventually come to light, not through human effort but by God's hand. Throughout Scripture, we see this pattern of exposure. Take the story of Esther, for instance. Haman, driven by pride and hatred, devised a secret plan to destroy the Jewish people. He worked behind closed doors, confident that his schemes would remain hidden. But God, in his sovereignty, used Esther to expose Haman's plans at the perfect moment. The gallows Haman built in secret for his enemy became the very instrument of his downfall. What does this tell us? That no matter how deeply betrayal is buried, God will bring it to the surface. What is done in the dark will not stay there, it will be revealed in the light. Have you ever found yourself tormented by the silence of hidden betrayal? Perhaps the lies spread about you remain unchallenged, and the world seems to believe the falsehoods while dismissing your truth. It's a painful place to be, a place that can shake your confidence and make you question your worth. But let me assure you, God is not oblivious to your struggle. He sees the truth, and he is not indifferent. He is preparing a moment of revelation so profound that no one will be able to deny it. God's light is relentless. It doesn't merely illuminate, it transforms. When he chooses to reveal what has been hidden, it's not just for your vindication, but for his glory. It's a moment where the world witnesses his justice, his power, and his ability to turn what was meant for evil into something good. This isn't about revenge. It's about redemption. It's about showing you and everyone watching that no secret is safe from his gaze, and no betrayal is beyond his ability to redeem. This revelation, however, requires patience. Imagine a potter shaping clay. If the clay is rushed through the process, it will crack in the fire. But when the potter takes his time, the finished vessel is strong, resilient, and beautiful. In the same way, God's timing in revealing the truth is purposeful. He waits until the moment when the exposure will not just show what was hidden, but will also prepare you for the blessings that follow. The day will come when their secrets will no longer hold power over you. The lies will crumble under the weight of the truth, and those who schemed against you will be left without refuge. Isaiah 29:15 warns, "Woe to those who go to great depths to hide their plans from the Lord, who do their work in darkness and think, 'Who sees us?' Who will know? God sees and God knows. And when he acts, the exposure will be undeniable. The beauty of God's revelation is that it not only clears your name but also reclaims your peace. The burden of trying to prove yourself, of fighting to bring the truth to light, is lifted. You can rest in the assurance that the same God who spoke light into existence will shine that light into the darkest corners of your life. And when he does, you won't need to explain yourself, the truth will speak for itself. So if you find yourself weighed down by the injustice of secrecy, hold fast to this promise: what is hidden will be revealed. The lies, the deceit, the schemes, they cannot outlast the truth. And when the truth comes, it will come with the full force of God's justice, leaving no room for doubt. Trust in him, for the light is already on its way. Your pain has a purpose. Pain, when it arrives, feels like an unwelcome guest, uninvited, overwhelming, and relentless. It takes up residence in your heart, and often you're left wondering, why me? What have I done to deserve this? But pain, as crushing as it may feel, is rarely without purpose. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the silent tears, they are not wasted. God, in his infinite wisdom, allows pain not to destroy you, but to prepare you for something far greater than you can comprehend. The Bible offers countless examples of how God uses pain as a tool to shape his people. Take Job, a man whose life was marked by unimaginable suffering. He lost everything: his wealth, his family, his health, yet his pain was not purposeless. Through his trials, Job's faith was refined, his understanding of God deepened, and his ultimate restoration was far greater than his initial loss. Job's story reminds us that God sees the end from the beginning, and he uses our pain to mold us into who we are meant to be. Have you considered that your pain might be the very soil in which your purpose is planted? A seed cannot grow without being buried in darkness first. The betrayal you've endured, the wounds inflicted by others, and the silent nights of despair, these are not signs of your defeat. They are the crucible in which your character is forged. God allows us to walk through the fire not to burn us, but to refine us. As Isaiah 48:10 declares, I have refined you, though not as silver. I have tested you in the furnace of affliction. Your pain is not meaningless, it is shaping you for a destiny that only God can see. Pain also has a way of revealing our dependence on God. When life is smooth, we can be tempted to rely on our own strength, our own wisdom. But when betrayal strikes, when the world turns its back on us, we are reminded of our need for a power greater than ourselves. It is in these moments of brokenness that we draw closer to God, leaning into his presence and discovering that his strength is made perfect in our weakness. As 2 Corinthians 12:9 assures us, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. They think about the moments of betrayal you faced, the lies, the rejection, the deliberate acts meant to harm you. None of these were accidents. They were allowed by God to shape you, to strengthen you, and to prepare you for a greater purpose. Joseph's betrayal by his brothers wasn't just a cruel act, it was part of God's plan to position him to save a nation. Without the pit, there would have been no palace. Without the betrayal, there would have been no redemption. Could it be that your pain is leading you to a place of greater influence and purpose? Pain also connects us to others in ways that nothing else can. When we endure suffering, we develop a compassion and empathy that allows us to minister to others in their pain. As 2 Corinthians 1:4 explains, God comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. Your pain is not just about you. It is about the people you will one day encourage, the lives you will touch, and the hope you will bring to others who are walking through their own seasons of betrayal and hurt. Have you ever thought that the pain you're experiencing now is preparing you for the blessings yet to come? God often uses the seasons of greatest difficulty to prepare us for the seasons of greatest impact. David spent years fleeing from Saul, enduring betrayal and living in fear, but those years in the wilderness prepared him to become the greatest king of Israel. Without the wilderness, David wouldn't have been ready for the throne. In the same way, your pain is preparing you for a greater calling, a purpose that you might not yet see, but that God is carefully orchestrating. Your pain is also a testimony in the making. The very betrayal that was meant to break you will one day become the story of how God redeemed you. Revelation 12:11 reminds us that they triumphed over the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. The wounds you bear today will be the evidence of God's healing tomorrow. The very people who doubted you, mocked you, or tried to destroy you will witness the transformation that only God could bring about in your life. So, when you feel overwhelmed by the weight of your pain, remember this: it has a purpose. It is not a punishment, but a preparation. It is not meant to destroy you, but to build you into the person God has called you to be. Hold on, for the season of pain is leading you to a harvest of purpose. From wounds to wisdom. Betrayal leaves wounds that cut deeply, not just into your heart, but into your spirit. The sting of deception, the sharp edge of broken trust, it's enough to make anyone question their faith, their worth, and their direction in life. But here's the profound truth about those wounds: they are not the end of your story. In God's hands, every wound becomes a source of wisdom, every scar a testament to his ability to bring beauty from ashes. When betrayal strikes, it often feels like chaos. The pain clouds your judgment, and the hurt overwhelms your ability to see a way forward. Yet in the midst of that chaos, God is at work, turning your pain into understanding. He is teaching you lessons that can only be learned through experience, shaping your character and sharpening your discernment. As James 1:2-4 reminds us, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Have you ever noticed that the deepest insights often come from the deepest pain? It's in our moments of brokenness that we are most open to God's voice. The betrayal you endured, though devastating, has given you a new perspective, one that can see through false pretenses, recognize sincerity, and navigate relationships with a wisdom that wasn't there before. These are not just survival skills, they are divine tools forged in the fire of adversity. Consider the story of Peter. He was one of Jesus' closest disciples, yet he denied Christ 3 times. That moment of failure, that wound of betrayal could have defined him. But it didn't. Instead, it became the foundation of his wisdom, humility, and leadership. After the resurrection, Jesus restored Peter, turning his deepest failure into a source of strength. Peter's wounds became wisdom, and that wisdom led him to become a cornerstone of the early church. Your wounds, too, can become a source of divine wisdom, guiding you and others toward God's truth. Wounds also teach us discernment. Betrayal often exposes the true nature of people and situations, stripping away illusions and forcing us to confront reality. While this process is painful, it is also profoundly enlightening. God uses these experiences to refine your understanding, to help you see the difference between those who are for you and those who are against you. Psalm 119:71 beautifully expresses this truth. "It was good for me to be afflicted, so that I might learn your decrees." What once felt like a curse becomes a blessing when you realize how much you've grown through it. Your wounds also give you the wisdom to help others. Pain is a universal language, and when you've walked through betrayal, you become uniquely equipped to guide others through their own struggles. The lessons you've learned, the strength you've gained, and the wisdom you've acquired are not just for you, they are for the people God places in your path. As 2 Corinthians 1:4 says, God comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. Think about how your perspective has shifted since the betrayal. Perhaps you've become more cautious, more discerning, or more reliant on God's guidance. These changes are not coincidences. They are the fruits of the wisdom born from your pain. What you've learned about human nature, about yourself, and about God's faithfulness will serve you well in the future. Betrayal may have wounded you, but those wounds have also equipped you to face the world with a strength and clarity you didn't have before. God also uses your wounds to deepen your faith. When betrayal shakes your foundation, you're forced to rely on Him in ways you never imagined. The wisdom that comes from this reliance is unshakable, rooted in the knowledge that God is your ultimate protector and provider. Proverbs 3:5-6 urges us to trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight. Through betrayal, God teaches us that His wisdom far surpasses our own. Lastly, wounds become wisdom when we allow God to heal them. Healing is not about forgetting the pain, but about learning from it and letting it shape us for the better. The scars you carry are not marks of defeat, but evidence of survival, growth, and resilience. They are a reminder of how far you've come and how much God has carried you through. Each scar tells a story of a lesson learned, a strength gained, and a faith deepened. So, when you look at your wounds, don't see them as signs of weakness. See them as the birthplace of wisdom, the evidence of God's transformative power in your life. Through those wounds, He is equipping you with the insight and strength to walk boldly into your purpose. Victory in public exposure. Betrayal often happens in secret. where those who plot against you feel secure in the shadows of their actions. They believe that as long as their schemes remain hidden, they are untouchable, safe from accountability. But the God of justice is never blind to their deeds, and when he acts, the exposure is not only undeniable but also redemptive. What they intended for your downfall becomes the very platform for your elevation. Their secrecy may have caused your pain, but God's exposure will bring your victory. Scripture gives us countless reminders of how God's justice is always perfect and intentional. One such example is the story of Mordecai and Haman in the book of Esther. Haman, driven by jealousy and pride, secretly plotted to destroy Mordecai and the Jewish people. He constructed gallows, confident that his plan would go unnoticed and succeed without resistance. But when God intervened, the truth of Haman's schemes was brought into the light. In a divine twist of justice, the gallows meant for Mordecai became Haman's own undoing. What began as a secret plot ended in a public spectacle of God's power and justice. This story is a vivid reminder that God's exposure not only brings justice but also delivers victory for his faithful ones. The power of public exposure lies in its undeniable nature. When God decides to reveal the truth, no one can refute it. The lies that were whispered in darkness, the false accusations, and the deceitful plans are all laid bare for the world to see. Psalm 37:6 captures this beautifully. He will make your righteousness shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun. The same God who spoke light into existence will shine his light on your situation, leaving no room for doubt about your integrity and his justice. Public exposure is not about revenge, it's about redemption. It's about turning what was meant to harm you into something that glorifies God and strengthens your testimony. The betrayal you endured, while painful, becomes the foundation for your restoration. When God exposes those who wronged you, it's not just about proving them wrong, it's about elevating you to a place of victory. What they thought would silence you becomes the very thing that amplifies your voice. Have you ever noticed that God's exposure doesn't just reveal the truth, it transforms the narrative? Consider Joseph once again. His brothers sold him into slavery, believing they had silenced him forever. But when the time came for God to reveal the truth, Joseph wasn't just vindicated, he was elevated to a position of power that enabled him to save his family and an entire nation. The public nature of his victory ensured that everyone could see God's hand at work. What about your story? Could it be that the exposure of those who wronged you will not only clear your name but also position you for something far greater than you imagined? Public exposure also serves as a lesson for those who witness it. When God moves, he doesn't just act on your behalf. He demonstrates his justice to everyone watching. Those who see your story unfold will recognize that God's timing and justice are perfect. Your victory becomes a testimony that inspires faith in others and reminds them that no act of betrayal, no matter how hidden, can escape God's sight. Isaiah 54:17 declares, "No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, and this is their vindication from me, declares the Lord." Your victory is a reminder to others that God is always in control. But here's the beauty of God's exposure. It's not just about clearing your name, it's about elevating your purpose. When God moves on your behalf, it's not merely to undo the harm, it's to propel you into a new season of blessings and influence. The very platform your enemies used to harm you becomes the stage for your triumph. The lies they spread become the backdrop for God's truth to shine through. The pain they cause becomes the evidence of God's power to restore and redeem. Your victory in public exposure also restores your peace. Betrayal often leaves you carrying the weight of false accusations and unanswered questions. When God reveals the truth, that weight is lifted. You no longer have to defend yourself or prove your worth. God has done it for you. As Romans 8:31 reminds us, if God is for us, who can be against us? When the truth comes to light, your peace is restored and your confidence in God's justice is renewed. So, as you endure the waiting season, trust that God's exposure is coming. It will not just reveal the truth, it will restore your peace, redeem your story, and elevate you to a place of victory that no one can deny. The justice of redemption. When we think of justice, we often imagine it as the balancing of scales, a swift punishment for wrongs done. But God's justice operates on a higher plane. It is not just about retribution, it is about redemption. It is about taking the betrayal, the pain, and the wounds inflicted upon you and transforming them into something far greater than you could ever imagine. God's justice is not only corrective, it is restorative. It is His way of ensuring that nothing in your life is wasted, not even your suffering. The justice of redemption is evident throughout Scripture. Consider the story of Ruth and Naomi. Naomi's life seemed shattered. She lost her husband and sons, leaving her bitter and broken. Ruth, her daughter-in-law, could have abandoned her, but instead she chose to stay. Together, they returned to Bethlehem with little more than faith and hope. What followed was a journey of divine redemption. God didn't merely restore Naomi and Ruth's circumstances. He elevated them. Ruth became the great-grandmother of King David, a direct ancestor of Jesus Christ. The pain Naomi endured became the platform for God's redemptive work, a reminder that His justice is always intertwined with His plans for restoration. Your story is no different. The betrayal you faced, though painful, is not the end. It is the beginning of a redemptive arc that only God can orchestrate. What others meant for your harm, God will turn into something good. Genesis 50:20 captures this promise perfectly. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. God's justice ensures that your pain serves a purpose, not just for you but for others who will witness or benefit from your story. Redemption doesn't mean erasing the past, it means transforming it. The wounds you carry become the evidence of God's healing. The betrayal that broke you becomes the testimony of how God rebuilt you. When God's justice unfolds, it doesn't just expose wrongdoing, it redeems every tear you shed, every moment of despair, and every unanswered question. Psalm 126:5 declares, "Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy." Your tears are not wasted, they are seeds planted in the soil of redemption, waiting to bloom into something beautiful. But God's justice of redemption isn't just about restoring what was lost, it's about giving you more than you ever imagined. When Job's suffering came to an end, God didn't simply return what had been taken from him. He doubled it. Job 42:10 says, "The Lord restored his fortunes and gave him twice as much as he had before." This is the nature of God's justice. It doesn't merely balance the scales, it tips them in your favor, ensuring that your latter days are far greater than your former. Redemption also brings clarity. When God moves, He doesn't just reveal the truth, He shows you why the pain was necessary. He takes the threads of betrayal and weaves them into a tapestry of purpose. The relationships that broke you teach you what true loyalty looks like. The lies spoken against you strengthen your commitment to the truth. The nights spent in tears deepen your empathy for others. God's justice doesn't just restore what was taken, it reshapes you into someone stronger, wiser, and more aligned with His purpose. Have you ever considered that your redemption is not just for you? God's justice is always multifaceted. Just as Ruth's redemption impacted generations, your story will touch lives in ways you cannot yet see. The pain you endured, the betrayal you survived, and the restoration God is bringing will serve as a beacon of hope for others. They will see your scars and recognize the power of God's healing. They will hear your story and find the courage to trust Him in their own seasons of brokenness. The justice of redemption is also a testament to God's sovereignty. It reminds us that nothing happens outside of His control. Even the betrayal you faced was allowed for a reason, and that reason is part of a divine plan that far exceeds human understanding. Romans 8:28 assures us, "And we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose." Even when it feels like your life is in pieces, God is working to bring those pieces together into a masterpiece. Finally, redemption brings peace. When God restores what was lost and redeems what was broken, you no longer have to carry the weight of betrayal. His justice lifts that burden, replacing it with joy, purpose, and a renewed sense of identity. You are no longer defined by what others did to you. You are defined by what God has done for you. So trust in the justice of redemption. Believe that God is not only exposing the truth, but also transforming your pain into purpose, your betrayal into blessing, and your wounds into wisdom. His justice is not just about setting things right, it's about making all things new. As we bring this message to a close, let these truths resonate deeply in your heart. Every betrayal, every wound, and every tear you've shed has not gone unnoticed by God. He sees you, He hears you, and He is working for you. The pain you've endured in silence will not be wasted. The secret schemes of others, the lies spoken in the shadows, and the hurt inflicted in private are all seen by the One whose light penetrates the deepest darkness. And when He moves, it will be undeniable. God's justice is not merely about exposing wrongs, it's about elevating you to a place of victory. The trials you've faced are not punishments, they are preparations. Through your pain, God is building your strength, deepening your faith, and preparing you for a purpose greater than you can imagine. Remember, the betrayal that was meant to destroy you is the very tool God will use to rebuild and restore you. So, what do we do in the waiting? We trust. We hold on to the promises that God will make your righteousness shine like the dawn and your vindication like the noonday sun. We lean into His timing, knowing that His plans are never late and His justice is never incomplete. And we rest in the assurance that when God acts, He not only sets things right but makes all things new. To anyone listening today who feels broken, betrayed, or forgotten, know this: God has not abandoned you. He is your defender, your redeemer, and your restorer. Hold on, for the day is coming when the whispers of betrayal will be drowned out by the roar of truth. Your scars will become your testimony, and your victory will inspire others to trust in Him. And so as you walk forward from here, carry this hope with you. The God who sees you will also fight for you. The God who allowed the darkness will also bring the light. And the God who witnessed your pain will ensure that your restoration is greater than your loss. Trust Him, for your story is far from over, it's only just beginning. Thank you for joining us today. Stay strong, stay faithful, and remember, God is always working for your good, even in the silence.